everyone, welcome to the ATAR Notes lecture series. We've been hosting lectures like these ever since 2015, so I'm really keen that you guys are here and to take you along with me for business studies today. On atarnotes.com, we've got heaps more resources as well. There's hundreds of downloadable study notes for all different types of subjects, so you can access the lectures. We've got online discussions filled with questions that you might have as well, so I definitely recommend checking those out. We've got online revision videos, newsletters to stay in the loop of what's happening, everybody's favorite, the ATAR calculator. There's a lot of articles with study strategies and tips and just heaps more. So if you're looking for some more free content and free advice, we've got a lot on atarnotes.com. And if you're looking for even more study resources and you've heard about our books but you'd like to access them digitally, we do have ATAR Notes Plus. This has all of our resources from our flashcards to our topic test books that are filled with questions and solutions, also text guides and full course notes, along with our brand new AI answer bot, which can help you and is trained in HSCVC and QCE subjects and content. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you're looking to access some more resources and you would prefer to have that online. Otherwise, we do have atarnotes.com/shop where you can access some of these and buy the physical books if you're keen. So my name's Sophia. I'm going to take you guys through business studies for our January lecture series today. A little bit about me. So I graduated in 2021 and I received a 96.3 ATAR. I've got some of my marks on the screen here, but the only one that really matters for this lecture is business, which I got a 95 in. And at the moment, I'm studying a Bachelor of Education to become a high school teacher, and my subjects that I'm going to teach are English and business studies. So I did business studies, I tutor business studies, and I'm studying to become a business studies teacher. So when it comes to business, you can trust your girl. A little about me. I love tennis. Probably doesn't look like it, staying next to Kyrgios, who doesn't look very happy to be next to me. And I'm a big Swiftie. And I also run the ATAR Notes TikTok. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but if you are looking for some free vids and free tips, I'm all over that. So if you're looking to follow, you definitely can. No pressure though. So for today's agenda, I'm going to take you guys through marketing. We're specifically going to go through the harder points and the most important parts of role, influences, and strategies. And then I'm going to wrap it up with some business studies tips. Some of you seeing this will notice that processes isn't there, but that's because we are kind of constrained with the 2-hour limit today. And processes in marketing is really straightforward and straight to the point. So we wanted to cover some of those harder ideas across these areas. I don't want you guys to think that this lecture is supposed to be something that's, going to overwhelm you and be filled with all this content. We definitely are going to get into quite a bit of work, but I don't expect any of you to be taking notes or, getting every single slide down. If you look across the screen, there should be a resource button where you can download these slides. So it's up to you if you want to kind of treat this almost like a university lecture and write notes as you go, or if you just want to have it on the background, clean your room, do whatever. It's completely up to you, but you can download these slides to have the notes. So there's no pressure to get everything down as I'm moving along with it. But the main goal of this lecture is just to introduce you guys to marketing. I don't expect anyone to leave and know all this content inside and out and expect them to be marketing experts. It's more just to introduce you to the content, so when you do come to learn it throughout the year, it's kind of just a refresher and you already kind of have that base knowledge. And I really want to go in on my business studies tips because I feel like a lot of the time business studies students are learning some really good advice right before their HSC exams. And if they were putting in those tips earlier and we're putting them in from this point that you guys are going into the new year and into these last 3 terms of Year 12, it could make a massive difference with your marks. So in this lecture, I really am going to hone in on my tips for studying, for achieving success, how I scored a 95, and just some of my study advice, because I feel like that is what's going to make more of a difference than knowing every single dot point inside and out, which you're going to do throughout the term anyways. But on that note, we will get started. Now, if you are looking for some more resources, I do have a lot posted on the TikTok. I've posted all my notes and all my summaries on there. So if you go onto the TikTok and you go, there's I think I made a playlist folder called HSC Business. You can actually download and save some of these resources. One of the best things you can do for yourself in business studies is fill in the blank syllabus sheets. They are such a game changer. Knowing the syllabus and being able to memorize that is such an important tool in your study for business and can make all the difference in your exam, because every single question is coming from the syllabus. There is no subject that relies as heavily on the syllabus in the entire HSC curriculum, in my opinion, in comparison to business. Like business is the one that has every question, every answer. It's going to come straight from the syllabus. The syllabus is so detailed. You see that every topic is a page and how many dot points there are, and they're so in detail with all the dashes as well. So using acronyms can really help you memorize. But these fill in the blanks will make sure that you know it off by heart. And by the end of the year, you really want to be able to get to the point where you can actually write the syllabus down freehand and just on a blank piece of paper. I know that probably sounds crazy so early now, but if you can start memorizing the syllabus from now, I promise it makes such a difference in your business reports, in the essays that you're writing, in your short answers, and even your multiple choice. If you go through and you watch some of the videos on our TikTok, I've shown questions in the HSC that have just been copied and pasted from the syllabus where you didn't even need to know the meaning or what any of the content was. If you just had memorized that dot point, you would know and you would get that mark. So the syllabus is a game changer. I'm going to keep saying it throughout the lecture, so I'm going to apologize from now, but it is so important you learn it. And this was the number one thing that helped me learn it off by heart for all topics: HR, finance, operations, and marketing. So I definitely recommend it. If you don't have TikTok or you wanted to grab a screenshot of it now, you can download it, of course, in the folder. And if you're not looking to download these slides, you can take a screenshot. I've got HR here, then the same fill in the blank for operations, marketing as well. And these ones are good because it's a good starting point for as you start to memorize, and then you can take away more and more words and even white out if you need to until you get to the point where you can completely fill it in, and you can even say it out loud. And then the finance one, which is probably the hardest to memorize just because there's a lot more business terminology in finance. And finally, like I said before, I also posted up my summary notes for business. Now, when it comes to business studies, a lot of people think the more notes, the better. But especially as you get towards your trials and your HSC, the less notes and the more condensed but intentional they are, the actual better that is for your study. So as you're going throughout the year, there's nothing wrong with having long notes. My notes throughout the year for each topic were over 20 pages, but by the time I got to my trials, that meant that I had 80 pages worth of notes. And when you're about to go into the exam, the last thing you want to be doing is scrolling through all these notes, forgetting everything. It's actually really overwhelming if you have too much. So one thing that I did throughout the year, I still had my long notes as I was going, and I was updating them after class in my free periods, just trying to stay on top of my notes. And I'm sure you guys would have done that last term, or you've got friends who've been doing that. But as I got closer to exams, I started making these summary sheets that have just the main content, the main points summarized. I'd go to these as a starting point, and then if I needed something in better detail, or I was reading a point and I was like, oh, I still don't really understand these, then I would go back to my longer notes. But right before your exams, whether you have an exam coming up in the next couple of terms, you guys are all going to have trials and you're all going to be sitting the HSC. I feel like summary notes make such a difference. So I've got all of my summary notes for marketing, finance, HR, and operations also on the TikTok. I know it sounds like I'm just trying to like beg you to follow me. You don't have to follow. You can save them, but I do really recommend checking them out, only because I was able to summarize all of the business curriculum and the entire syllabus into less than 20 pages. So each of the topics are around 5 to 6 pages, and it's just got the main points and all, just the main ideas summarized. So if you guys are looking just for shorter notes, I found that that was so much less stressful for me. They were definitely hard to make because you have to get all the most important things down and picking what's important and what's not. But right before I went into the exam, I just had everything there, and it was so much easier to study. So if you wanted to access those, they are on the TikTok, and you can save them straight to your camera roll. You can print them, you can download them. It's completely up to you. But one thing I really, really do advise is to use other people's resources. There's nothing wrong with stealing notes. I'm asking you to steal my notes. Take them. Take my notes, search up business notes. We've got heaps on atonnotes.com for free that you can access to. But don't feel all this pressure to write your own. Don't get me wrong, I definitely liked writing my own, but even while I was writing my own, I had downloaded other people's notes, I had friends' notes, and I was taking different things from different people's to make my own. So everyone is kind of just using each other's, and we're so lucky that we have all these resources that we can access, especially for free. So I definitely recommend taking advantage of that. There is no shame. There is no shame in using other people's notes. I used other people's summaries to help me make this summary, plus my own notes and other people's notes too. And I have no shame admitting that. I don't like this stigma. Take other people's notes, use it. People are posting them. You're actually at more of a disadvantage if you think that if you just keep doing it your own way, that's the only way. If you access other people's notes, you're broadening it. You'll find new case studies, new info, new points that you can bring up. You'll expand your business terminology, and it makes such a difference. So throughout the year, especially with business, that's something you can do just to get ahead. And even if you fall behind on, one topic or a couple dot points, you can just go and download. So no stress. Especially, I just want to quickly say this for anyone who's not on top of their notes, it's completely fine. It's up to you if you want to write your own, or if you feel good just getting a summarized version online or like a free resource. I definitely recommend, when you are looking for other people's notes and you're accessing some of those free resources and other people's summaries, definitely kind of shop around. You don't have to go with the first one you see. You might like really summarized ones, or maybe you want really detailed ones. I know some people really care about how they look and if they've got that aesthetic, or others don't care at all. Some people care about the length. It's all up to you, but if you shop around, you kind of see which type of notes suit you best and which work best for you. And I found that printing out other people's notes and then going through them with a highlighter and taking notes was something that really helped me. But again, everybody's study style is different. Please do not think this is going to turn into another lecture, but we'll get to the content, I promise. But please don't think that there's only one way to study, and that just because this student who got this mark did this, that's the only way that you can do it. Business studies is not like that at all. I know people who got the exact same mark as me doing less study. I know people who got the same mark doing more study. It's completely independent, and the best thing you can do for yourself is recognizing your strengths and then working with that. So don't feel pressure to follow one certain study routine or one certain study method. You can use a mix, and I actually really recommend that. But if you guys have any questions as you're watching this live, I am going to be in the chat box. So if you have any study questions so far, you can leave those there. And if you're watching this afterwards, you can go through the chat and see what we were talking about. Now let's get started with role. So you guys would know from last term that the way that the syllabus follows is role, influences, processes, and strategies. Now in marketing, one of the most important things is that you just have a definition. Now there's a lot to memorize in business studies, but one thing you always want to have memorized is a definition of the core topic. So I need you guys to have a definition of marketing, finance, operations, and HR. I recommend just putting them on a flashcard. You don't need to have this super fancy, encyclopedia definition. Just have a pretty straight to the point one, and one that you can kind of alter depending on the question. But a lot of questions, especially in the short answers, you'll want to start off with the definition of marketing just to set you up, and it really will show off to your marker, which we want to do. In business studies, one thing you want to do is really get those brownie points with your marker, and just having a pretty solid definition of a topic is always going to help you do that. So here, our definition is marketing is a total system of interacting activities designed to plan, price, promote, and distribute products to present and potential customers that satisfies their needs and wants. Obviously, you can kind of shorten this and summarize it if you feel like that's a really long one to memorize. But the main point is the total system of interacting activities, so that you can recognize that there's lots of things happening at once, and also satisfying the needs and wants of customers, because what we're going to learn in role is that marketing is massive on customer orientation. Now, the two main goals, and these are two things that you really want to memorize, are profit maximization and customer orientation. So obviously the main goal with any business is to make a profit, and the main goal for marketing is that they come out with as much profit as possible, which is the biggest possible difference between the revenue, which is the money coming in, and the cost, which is all the money coming out. And the second biggest goal is customer orientation, which is really putting customers at the center of the business. So it's making sure that they're providing goods and services that are fulfilling all the needs and wants of customers. And that can only be found out through market research and seeing what customers are into, what the trends are, and so on. So without this planning and strategic planning, there would not be able to be the opportunity to have long-term business success. So it's really important in terms of your memorizing so far. All I really need you guys to kind of understand is just that general definition of marketing, and that the two main goals of marketing are profit maximization and customer orientation. Those are two big ones. And you're going to be coming back to this even when you're talking about influencers or you're writing about the processes and strategies. A lot of the time, especially in business reports and essays, you're going to be linking it back, because the effect of all of those strategies and processes and the result of that and the outcome of that is always going to link back to these goals, because they want to make a profit and they want to make customers happy. So one really good thing about marketing, and marketing is personally my favorite because you can really get away with waffling. We experience so much marketing right now, but we experience so much marketing in our daily lives that even a lot of case studies, you can use your own businesses or businesses that you shop from. And a lot of the time, and as you come to learn marketing in class, you'll learn a point and you'll be like, oh, I've experienced that, or oh, I've seen that at the shops, or oh, a retail worker has said that to me or done that to me, or oh, the same thing happened when I got a refund. A lot of the marketing topic is all stuff that we've experienced, which makes it a lot more easy to learn and just kind of grasp in comparison to finance, for example, when you're looking at debt and loans and some of those topics. Now, interdependence comes up in every single topic and it's very repetitive, but it is one of the learn twos, so it's really important to learn. The interdependence is just the mutual dependence between the key functions, so how they all kind of rely on one another. But they need to rely on one another to perform at full capacity. So marketing, for example, cannot perform perfectly if it isn't backed financially. Because if they didn't have that relationship with finance and they weren't receiving that financial backing, how would they afford their advertisements or afford celebrity endorsements? Or afford market research. So everyone is helping each other, and it's really important that you can understand how all of them kind of interconnect. So what I did for you guys is just put on this table, because you really don't need to know independence. Like you're not going to be able to, they're not going to ask you to write a whole essay. If anything, they'll put it in the short answers, and they can put it as a little dot point for the business report, but it wouldn't come up more than that. So it's just important that you have a pretty good understanding, or at least like 1 to 2 points of how, for example, how finance helps marketing and then how marketing helps finance. So when we're looking at operations and marketing, the production processes need to fulfill the designs that are made in the marketing function, and they need to be aligned to the customers as outlined by market research. So what marketing is doing is they're finding out what the customers want and what type of designs that they want, and operations is coming back and fulfilling those designs and making those products. So marketing also ensures that the product is advertised correctly, and marketing ensures the price adheres to the operations production cost. Because marketing, a lot of people get confused in marketing when price comes up, because they think price, oh, that's money, that's finance. But marketing is the department that's deciding on the price, and that's using different strategies and methods to cover that. And in those strategies and methods, they need to make sure that they're covering the operations costs. So both of them are working together to figure that out. Now, finance and marketing obviously are very important. Finance is gonna give those funds so that they can promote, conduct market research, and also design the goods and services. And they also ensure that the advertised price is profitable, and that they just have financial restrictions and resources in place. But what marketing does is make sales. So the most important thing you get from interdependence for marketing is that the only actual function of the entire business that is making profit is marketing. Marketing is like helping fund everyone else, and those funds are then managed by finance. But marketing is actually selling the product. And if they did not sell the product, they would have no profit. So yes, finance is backing that, but all that backing is still coming from marketing, if that makes sense. So marketing is what's making the money for the company. And HR and marketing is super important. HR is all got to do with employees and the workers and all their recruitment, training, and development. So it's really important, especially with marketing. You guys would know if you go to the shops and you have a really good experience with the worker and those workers that just make you want to shop there and make you want to buy the product. Sometimes I'll buy something from a store only because the worker is so nice, and I feel bad because they're just, such a nice person that I want to buy something. And I don't know if any of you guys can relate to that. But if I have a bad worker and I'm not treated the nicest, for example, if your girl walks into Cook Eye, for example, I haven't always had the best experiences in their shopping, and that actually turns me away from wanting to buy things even when I like it, because I just don't really feel like the vibe is there and that my needs and wants as a consumer are being respected. So that's just an example. I want you guys, especially throughout this lecture, to think of stores that you've gone into and your own experiences and how you can relate that. Because one thing I found for me throughout business studies is the second I could put a point of content or like, part of my notes, I could relate that to my own experience or to something I own or to a shop or to a business that I like have been around or interacted with. It just made the content so much easier to learn and to understand, and it made it a lot easier to write about as well, especially in business reports. So throughout the lecture, I'm going to really push you guys to think about how we can kind of relate it to your own life, because it'll make it easier, especially if just in case you needed to make up a case study, you don't have to make one up because you have your own example. But I want you guys to think of workers when you go shopping, whether you're shopping for clothes or you're shopping for shoes, and if you feel like that makes a difference when you've got an employee who's like really fast, or then you go, or someone you go and ask them to grab you a pair of shoes and they're not back for another 5 minutes. So obviously HR and marketing are going to work really hand in hand as well. Now, a big thing here is that the student learn to is at the bottom, and this one is why goods and or services are central to both marketing and operations. The learn tos are really important, and they're at the top of the syllabus. Now, what we're going through now are the learn abouts, which is all the content points. But for finance, for marketing, for HR, and for operations, there are the learn tos. There's usually around 8 to 10, and there are specific questions. So this now could be used as a short answer question in one of your assessments throughout the year, in your trial, or in the HSC. And what these learn tos are the main goals that NESA has for you guys to learn, and the main questions that they hope that you can understand and write about. So I really, really recommend it. A lot of students don't do it because they don't know. I didn't know this until probably halfway through year 12, and as soon as I started kind of using this to my advantage, I noticed a difference in my marks and in my response writing. But I really recommend really just looking at those learn tos, because they are ignored a lot of the time. But this is what, when they're sitting down to write the HSC exam and they're sitting down to write your trials exam, this is what they're looking at. This is what they're looking at. So I really recommend just going, even if you want to quickly open up the syllabus now and look at those learn tos. Those are the main questions that they want you guys to be able to answer. Now, when it comes to interdependence, I wanted to add in a case study for you guys just to help understand, because case studies are really important in business. Now, it's up to you and your school what case studies you guys are going to look at. A lot of schools do Qantas. I know my school did McDonald's. IKEA is pretty popular as well, and so is Apple. But throughout this lecture, I've put in a lot of Qantas ones because I feel like they're pretty consistent. So for Qantas, marketing strategies like sales promotion help boost sales in non-peak times to help smooth operations at Qantas in times of fluctuations in demand, because obviously at different times of the year, people are flying more or less. For finance depends on marketing to generate funds and moderate success of new strategies through sales, market share, and profitability analysis. And you can see that with their Qantas Lounge and their new check-in facilities. So finance is really backing all these upgrades that they're making, which is helping their marketing campaigns. And suitable staff need to be provided to provide services that satisfy the customer needs and wants. And if they don't have those flight attendants and the staff that are providing that patient and kind support, they're not going to be meeting customers' needs. And you guys know, when people, post, oh, I had this experience with this worker, or, kind of talk about their experience shopping at a brand, it can ruin the entire brand, ruin the entire reputation. I'm sure you guys have seen different brands get cancelled online. So HR is so important, and the level of staff and the quality of the service they're providing is very important, especially in our society today. So that's just an example with Qantas. Now, when it comes to case studies, you can be asked to write about case studies in your short answer, but the main part is in your case study essay, which we're going to look at a little bit later. I'm not sure if you guys would have written one in your first assessment, or maybe you're going into writing one in the next 2 terms before your trials. But this is where you kind of just can start to build them up. I really recommend adding some case studies to your notes as you go through. You don't need one for every single dot point. It's just not realistic to know, and a very specific statistic or very specific example for every single dot point. But as you go through, I feel like case studies help you learn the content anyways, and you will need to use them at one point. So I definitely recommend getting some down. But like I said, Qantas is great. McDonald's I really recommend, only because I'm sure a lot of you guys like Maccas and eat Maccas, and it's really good and easy to come up with one. If you do end up forgetting a statistic, you can just think of your own experience, and we're going to go through some today. But I really definitely recommend Maccas, because in comparison to Qantas and IKEA, it's a bit hard to like waffle one out. I feel like you really have to be more strategic with it. While with Maccas, because a lot of us consume it, it's much easier, in my opinion, on the spot, if you're under pressure and you're struggling to remember something, to just come up with something about Maccas that you already know, and that is true because we eat Maccas. We're going to go into marketing approaches, which is basically how marketing has changed over time. It starts in the 1820s to 1930s, which is a production approach. Then 1930s to 1960s was the selling approach, and now we're in the marketing approach, but we're going to look at what those different stages mean. So the production approach focused on improving quality and quantity of manufactured products, and there was actually no marketing involved in this approach. So all that it was mass producing and mass selling. They were just making heaps of stuff because demand was always higher than supply and production, particularly because it was the Industrial Revolution. So if you're doing history, you would understand that they were just consistently producing and producing. But they didn't really care if the customers needed it, wanted it. They were like, okay, we're just going to make this, we're going to make this much. It is what it is. There was no market research, so they didn't consider if do the customers like it, what color do they want, how many should we make. They just took orders, and if they got the order, they would just go and deliver it, and that was it. So the main thing about the production approach is that there was no marketing involved. It was purely mass producing and then mass selling it, just doing everything in mass. Now, the best case study you can use for this is Henry Ford. And they pioneered the assembly line method of production and became the leaders of the production approach at the time. So they had this philosophy on high quality products that if they made high quality products, customers would buy them whether they needed them or not. And the famous slogan for the vehicle was that the customer could have any color he or she wanted as long as it was black. So you could have any Ford you want as long as it's black. And all that shows in the sarcasm and the irony there is that the customer's needs, they didn't care for them. They weren't taken into consideration. They just knew that customers would buy them because the demand was always exceeding, and they didn't really care at all for their needs or wants. So that's the most important thing. It's got nothing to do with the customers, nothing to do with marketing. It's purely on production, hence why it's called production approach. But like I said, guys, I don't expect you to get every single point down. I really want you to just leave away with these key takeaways. So just, the main points of independence, that the two main goals were profit maximization and customer orientation, the definition and, satisfying needs and wants. And now that production approach is mainly about mass production and that there was no marketing. I don't need you to know like every single dot point. I really don't want you guys to stress while watching this. I'm very proud that you're watching this, especially if you're watching this as it comes out in the holidays and that you're spending your holidays watching this video. But just in general, as you're going throughout the year, please do not put too much pressure on yourself to get every single point down. In business studies, you will never need every single point. You can still get such a good mark and still get a 90 plus score without knowing every single point. And if you know too much, you're not even going to use it. You can know every single dot point inside out, and they still cannot assess all of that in the exam because the HSC exam is 3 hours, and you're studying these topics for 4 terms. So no pressure. Like I said, this lecture isn't for you to leave and be able to write a whole essay on marketing. It's more just to introduce you to it. And if you've already done marketing, hopefully this is just a refresher if you're still watching. Now, after World War I, production became more efficient and productivity increased. So there was a lot more high quality and mass-produced products in the market, and it had been going on like that for years and years. So this is where businesses developed a sales-orientated approach to beat competition, gain new customers, because there were so many people mass-producing, and demand and supply was starting to become a little bit more balanced. So they had to kind of take a step forward to get new people and to kind of compete with each other, and that's where the selling approach comes in. So what the selling approach involved was increasing spending on advertising and communication systems so that they could reach a larger group of people. And they also hired salespeople who used high pressure tactics to convince customers to buy their products. So the sales reps actually created demand rather than researching what the consumer actually wanted. And this is the biggest difference between the selling approach and the marketing approach. Now, with the selling approach, the salespeople were just trying to sell them. They're trying to convince the consumer that they need to buy the product, and they were creating that demand. The demand wasn't just there. They were like creating it so that people believed that they wanted the product, but they weren't looking, okay, what do the customers want? What's the trends right now? They still were just making products based on their own thoughts, and it wasn't with much research or consideration for the customer. And then they were just using very high pressure tactics to then pressure and persuade consumers to buy their product. So a very common example at the time was door-to-door salesmen. And they would go across door to door, kind of convincing different households to buy items, for example, vacuums. But again, it wasn't like, oh, I want a vacuum. Someone would come to your door, hey, want to buy this vacuum? These are all the features. And they're kind of creating that demand rather than the consumers seeking that want and seeking that need. So the marketing approach, and the difference with this is that the shift for it, like the focus shifts from the product to the customer. So in the selling approach, they're really focusing and forcing on selling that product, While in the marketing approach, it's purely about the customer, and the marketing approach really links back to customer orientation and making sure they're at the center of the business. But research is conducted to determine their needs and wants, and marketing strategies are tailored to suit. So in the selling approach, there's no research, they're just trying to persuade people that they need the product. But in the marketing approach now, they are researching, they're doing focus groups, they're speaking to different people, they're doing surveys, they're doing different tests to figure out what customers actually want, and then they're using strategies that are suited to the customers to sell them. So the marketing approach is massive on the customers. Research and development must take place before production and during and beyond to ensure the success of the product. And this has all been influenced by changing social and economic conditions. So the marketing approach has a very big focus on corporate social responsibility, which is the growing public concerns over environmental pollution. Um, and it looks at the external pressure and demand for businesses to produce sustainable products. So that's when you think about kind of brands that don't animal test, for example. So with beauty, if you look at brands like Lush, that is an example of how they are putting customers' needs and wants who really care about sustainability and the environment first. And if that was your need or want, you're more likely to shop and support a business, support Lush than a brand at Mecca that might animal test, for example. Customer orientation, which is collecting information from customers and basing marketing decisions and practices on customers' wants and interests, and also relationship marketing. Now, relationship marketing is the long-term and cost-effective relationships with customers. Now, a lot of the time they're doing this through reward programs. So I just used Mecca before. Beauty Loop makes me consistently go back to Mecca instead of Sephora. But it also just things like flybys, and even at coffee shops, you get the 10th coffee free, etc. Those reward programs is something that keep the customers in that relationship. They keep them loyal to the brand and coming back. And that really helps improve that customer satisfaction. And again, all of these points link back to the customer. So when you're looking at marketing approach, it's all about the customer, all about their needs and wants, and supporting those. When we go back to the selling approach, it's very much about pressure and creating that demand to sell the product, but not to market it. They're selling it, they're convincing you that you need it, while the marketing approach is a lot more about the customer, figuring out their needs and wants first, and then adapting the entire marketing approach to them. And when we were looking at the production approach, no marketing whatsoever, purely just mass production. So that's the difference between the three. Now we get into types of markets. So there's the industrial, intermediate, mass, consumer, resource, and niche. So the resource market is where members are primarily engaged in primary production, so fishing, mining, and agriculture. They mainly purchase tools and sell the primary resources that are coming directly from the land. So the resource market is just the base and where it starts. And then we move into the industrial market, which is a kind of like a middle party market. And it's businesses who are buying resources and turning them into different products or services for consumers. So for example, an industrial market would be like a bakery who's buying flour and then turning that into bread and different baked goods. Who buy flour and yeast, for example, like we have here, for the production of bread and then selling them to consumers. So the intermediate market is wholesalers and retailers who buy finished goods and then resell these same goods for profit in consumer markets. So the majority of goods sold to consumer markets are first sold to consumer or intermediate markets like this. And this is where they're business to business, where the businesses are selling it to each other and then to the consumer. The consumer market is us. So that's consumers or households that consume products they buy. So for example, you're in the consumer market if you buy a t-shirt from Kmart and you wear it. But obviously if you buy a t-shirt from Kmart and then you sell it, you're moving back into the intermediate market. So you, the consumer, are in the consumer market if you buy a product that you don't intend to resell, or you use the product you bought to create something else. So this is all about going to the shops. When we go to the shops normally and you go buy a dress, you go buy shoes, you go buy groceries, you're in the consumer market because you're buying something and you're intending to use it and not to make a profit off of that. Now, the niche market is a concentrated or micro market, a narrowly selected target market, and a smaller portion of the segment of the population. So a really good example of niche market I always think of is Hobby Co. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that store. I know it's in the Queen Victoria building in Sydney, but they have just like a little, it's very niche, but they've got I know, like trains and puzzles and just different really unique hobbies, um like different activity packs. But what they've done is they've split the mass market into market segments with common interests, and then they target one of those segments. So when you're looking at the niche market, for example, in the mass market, which is everybody's needs, if you wanted a water bottle, just go to Kmart. But in the niche market, um, there's Frank Green and the reusable cups, which probably aren't as niche anymore because of how much they've blown up on TikTok. And literally everybody has a Frank Green bottle now, or a Stanley Cup. But originally, when Frank Green came out, they were targeting a really small market of consumers who wanted high quality import resources and also cared about environmental sustainability, which Frank Green could then really target. Now, the sales are often small, but they price them higher because the product is more exclusive, and they're in that niche market. So I want you guys to think of a niche market, or if you guys are a part of a niche market, you can think of a store that's very specific. I think Lush is another good example of that niche market, even though the market for environmental beauty products is growing. When you compare Lush to Mecca or to Sephora, which is filled with different brands that, you know, some do have environmental concerns, others don't, you can really see the difference in their marketing and who they're targeting. Now, the mass market is all consumers, irrespective of demographics. So, no matter where you are, everybody's in the mass market. The point of the mass market is to mass produce, distribute, and mass promote one product. So, they don't target products to any specific groups of buyers. They just kind of assume that everybody has the same wants and needs, and that because of that, they don't really need to market it in a particular way or like individually sell it. So because of greater choice, higher personal incomes, and customers seeking more individualized products, the mass market is starting to be more and more replaced by niche markets. But the best example is that Model T Ford that we looked before, and you can buy it as long as it's black, where they're just mass producing it. They're selling to the mass market, and they're just assuming that everyone wants it. A really good example of mass markets is just grocery stores. You don't really see grocery stores trying to target individual people, or, you know, trying to be really unique. They know that the products of people are goods and services that everybody needs and everybody is using. So there doesn't really need to be this individualized selling experience every single time you go shopping. You're not going to have somebody, hi, how are you? What are you looking for today? When you go to the grocery store, but when you go and buy a new dress for your formal this year, that's going to happen. So that's kind of the difference with mass market and niche market. A good example of niche market is a formal dress store. You guys can use that as your case study. So I added in a couple practice questions for you guys so that we can see, you can just kind of think about the content as we go. So here we've got one from the 2018 HSC. So which approach is being used when a business creates a focus group to evaluate a product? So is it marketing, production, selling, or standardization? Now, automatically, I hope you all knew that it was not standardization, because that was not something that we looked at. Now, let's look at the keywords here. Now, which approach is being used? So it's obviously going to be one of these. And if you knew the syllabus, even if you didn't know what standardization was, if you knew the syllabus and you had memorized that, you would know that there's only 3 approaches and these and that. So you could automatically cross that out. It's a focus group to evaluate the product. Now, when you're looking at the focus group, that's the business creating that, which means it wouldn't be production approach, because this has nothing to do with mass production or demand. So we can cross out B. It means we have to sit back and think, okay, is it selling or marketing? Now, remember, with selling, we were saying that it really focuses on creating that demand for the customer and convincing them that they need it, while marketing is about understanding the consumers to then create that product and to market that product. So if we're looking at here, what this question is saying is that a business creates a focus group, which is a group of people to come together and give their opinions on the product before they launch it. And they use this group of people. I actually did a focus group for V once, those V drinks, the energy drinks, and they showed us, I was in a group of like 10 people. I really recommend this when you guys get out of school. It's actually fun. You get paid to do it. But you're in like a little office, and they showed us the different cans, and I had to say how they made me feel and how I think I would feel holding one, and how I perceive it and which colors made me happy. I had to point to different emojis to say like which cans made me feel different ways. And they used all those responses to then come out with the can and which one they're going to get released. And what they were doing is looking what I needed and what I wanted as a customer, and then changing the product to achieve that. And they did heaps of different focus groups across Australia and across the world to then come out with these new cans, which was pretty cool. But again, off topic, I just want you guys to try and understand what a focus group is, and future side hustle, thank me later. But what that meant was that they were looking at my needs and wants and then creating the product. So if a business here is creating a focus group to evaluate the product, it's obviously not going to be selling, because it would be selling if a salesperson was at their door knocking, oh, you need this product. It would be selling if there was a high pressure tactic. But here they're actually looking at the customers first. They're creating this focus group to see what the customers think and evaluate the product, which shows that they're, putting customers at the center. Therefore, it's going to be you guys are all getting a 99 ATAR, I know it. Let's look at this one. A soft drink company plans a product campaign to change the colors of their cans each week for a year. This requires interdependence between which two business functions. Now, automatically, when it comes to the design of the product, the actual design and who's picking that design is marketing. Marketing is always organizing. They're looking at, what, like I just said with the V cans, they were looking at what colors made me feel happy, which made me feel sad. They even asked me which color can I would feel the coolest if I was holding. So marketing is very big about the colors of a product, and I'm sure you guys have seen stuff about KFC and Macca's and the colors and the red that they use and the psychology behind that too. But marketing is choosing the colors, so we automatically know that it's not C&D because marketing is not part of it. This is a technique that I really recommend you guys to use in your exams and across different subjects that have multiple choices, to physically cross it out. It makes such a difference. It can really help you focus on the main ones. Now, what we've got left is marketing and finance and marketing and operations. Now, if we look at finance is all about backing the costs and providing adequate funds, but that has nothing to do with the color of the cans. What it does have to do with, though, is operations, because operations is the part and the function of the business that is actually going to make these different colored cans. So marketing is deciding, okay, we're going to change the color of the cans. These are the colors that we want. And they're communicating with operations to then make them. So marketing is finding that need and that want and kind of organizing and planning it out. Operations are the ones who are actually bringing the product. Anytime a product is actually produced, it's all coming from operations and the production process. So here your answer would be B. Again, guys, 99 ATAR incoming. Let's do one more. So we've got this from the HSC in 2012. The business studies syllabus has been around for years and years, so there's so many practice questions that you can use, and I really recommend doing as many multiple choice as you can, because I know, at least from my own experience, but also from tutoring students, that most people do not like business reports and do not like the case study essays. But both of those are worth 20 marks. And guess what else is worth 20 marks? In your trial exam and your HSC is 20 marks, just like your prelims probably would have been, 20 marks of multiple choice. And it is much, much easier to score 20 out of 20 in multiple choice, where the answer is there for every question. You just have to pick the right one. Easier said than done, I know. But it's much easier to get there in multiple choice and get that higher mark there than it is to write a 20 out of 20 business report. So especially, I say that especially because the syllabus has been around for so long, there's been so many papers that at this point there's actually some questions that are starting to repeat, and there's only so much that they can ask. So the more past questions you do, the more practice you do for multiple choice, you'll start to recognize the patterns, the wording, and that'll all really help you make a difference in your mark and really get into that 17, 18, 19 and 20 out of 20, which can make such a big difference, and then helps you afford to lose marks later. You can get a 14 or a 15 in the business report if you really smash out and you get 18 plus in the multiple choice. So I think really understanding your strengths and weaknesses, that doesn't mean you can't improve across all areas. I just think that multiple choice, a lot of people ignore it because they're really stressed out for the other sections, even though this way is exactly the same and is easier to perform in if you do the right practice, and it's kind of guaranteed. If you do enough practice and you kind of recognize those trends and patterns, especially because there's over 10 years of past papers that you can do. There's so many multiple choice questions that you can do, and that's just from HSC. For on top of all that, there's so many trial questions that you can do too. So I'm going to stop it on multiple choice. You can see I'm a multiple choice advocator, but I just know from my own experience, I was always ignoring it because I was like, no, I'll just do it on the day. I don't know what they're going to ask me. Like, I can't really prepare for it. But across all my subjects, as soon as I started prioritizing marks here, it actually helped my marks a lot more because I was getting, pretty easy 1 marks, just here and there in the multiple choice. And then that was helping me lose marks later in some of my weaker areas and still get my the marks that I wanted to attain in my goals. So let's look here. A business develops a shirt made from fabric which never stains or looks crushed. It then runs an advertising campaign to inform people about this product. What type of approach is this? Automatically, what do we know? It's not industrial. Why do we know this? Because the syllabus says that there's 3 approaches: marketing, production, and selling. And again, I don't want to say I'm right. But the syllabus is so important. The syllabus is so important. And even if you knew nothing about what any of these meant, if you had memorized the syllabus, automatically you have a higher chance of getting it right because you know that it's not A. Now let's move on. Now, can it be production? They're developing the shirt made from fabric which never stains or looks crushed. Okay, they're developing it, so maybe it could be production. But then it runs an advertising campaign to inform people about the product. Now, we know for a fact that it can't be production now because when it came to the production approach, there was no marketing. So already we know, okay, it's not production, which again, we're getting to this point and see the trend. These are 2 HSC questions. We get to the point where we have to decide, okay, is it marketing or is it selling? Which is why I really kept going on about the differences between the two. And I hope this is helping you understand them, because this is something that they often do to try and trick students, because students get confused between selling and marketing. So what we're looking at here, first they're making the product that never stains or looks crushed. They're running an advertising campaign to inform people about the product. Now, you've got to be very intentional here. They're not saying to evaluate the product. They're not saying anything about the focus group. There's nothing about the needs and wants of the customer. They made a product, then now they're advertising it saying, this is the product, you should buy it. So for that reason, because it's not like they're researching what customers want first, then they've made this product, and now they're doing development to understand the product or to evaluate the product for customers. Instead, they were like, okay, we made this product, we're going to sell it to you. This is why you should buy it, and we're going to inform people about the product and why they should buy it. So we know for a fact that it's D and it's the selling approach. So hopefully that helps. I know I probably sound like a broken record, but marketing is all about the customer, their wants, their needs, evaluating, understanding them, while the selling is like, here's a product, this is why you should buy it. And that's a very big difference between putting customers at the center of the business or just having them as the end goal and just trying to persuade them and inform them why they should buy it. So the big kind of indicator here was inform, and that even just the order, they made the product. It doesn't say they researched what customers wanted and then, found out that their want was a fabric that never stains or looks crushed. They made the product, they ran an advertising campaign, and then they informed people about the product and sold the product. So that's how you can kind of see, and, looking for those keywords will really help make a difference in that. Now let's get on to influencers. I'm going to drink a quick sip of water because your girl is going through it in these lectures. Let's look at consumer choice first. So consumer choice is the decisions and actions of customers when they search for, evaluate, select, and purchase goods and services. Businesses being aware of this helps increase sales, design appropriate marketing strategies, and improve customer satisfaction. So it's really just trying to see what customers kind of consider when they're purchasing and they're buying goods and services. So there's different influences on this. There's psychological, social, cultural, economic, and government influences, and we're going to look through them. So the psychological influences are all different personal characteristics. So your personality is going to affect how you shop, what you shop for, where you shop from. But so is your learning, your own experiences, your attitude, your motivation, and your perception. So for example, when it comes to personality, businesses use celebrity endorsements to influence consumers to want their personal image to reflect that of the celebrity. So for example, if you see, I know like the who was it? McDonald's has like those different meals. Like I know they had the Travis Scott meal, for example. But even when you see a celebrity or your favorite beauty brand, and you want to support that celebrity, all of that comes down to your personality. And you think, oh, if I shop from this brand, I'm just like this person, for example, or a TikTok influencer or whatever. Learning comes from your informations and your experiences, and that's going to also affect how you shop and where you shop. Your attitude and just overall how you feel about an object or activity is going to affect that. Your motivation, so if you're motivated for safety, if your motivation when buying a car is buying the safest car, that's very different to buying a car that looks the best or that has the best sound system. So depending on your motivation when you're buying something, it's going to psychologically influence the product that you get, and also your perception, which is how you take in and interpret information, and just your opinions and meanings of different items. So for example, some people might perceive luxury goods in a higher light than other people do. And I have friends who love designer items and just want to buy designer products, and others who don't really value it and think that that's pretty shallow because that's their opinion and that's their perception. So psychological influence, it's pretty easy to kind of waffle about if you need to. It's probably not the best thing to say in a recorded lecture as a future teacher, but if you needed to waffle, you guys already know that what a personality is, what a perception is, what a motivation is, and it's really just understanding how that, and even think, I want you to think about yourself, what's your perception on designer goods. For example, if you were to buy a car, are you thinking about what it looks like, or are you thinking about how safe it is? Think about a celebrity that you really like. If they said, oh, or if they were in an ad for a certain brand, would you buy it? I think that can make a big difference. So here's an example of some celebrity endorsements. The best ones to talk about are Uber Eats, because I feel like celebrities are always in Uber Eats campaigns. We've got Roger Federer here too. But again, like let's say you're a tennis fan, you really like Roger Federer, talking about myself, and you see, he's cooking Barilla pasta. Best believe when I go to Woolworths, I'm gonna pick up Barilla over the home brand, because I want to be like Roger. So I think celebrity endorsements and just thinking about celebrities that you've seen in campaigns, or your favorite influencers, etc., can make a difference. Now, social cultural influences are all got to do with your social class, your culture, your family, and the role that you have in that family, and your peer groups and your friends. So obviously your social class is going to affect what products you buy. Now, your social class is all relative to your rank in society. So your education, your income, and your occupation, depending on those factors, you'll be buying different products from different stores. Now, your culture is also going to affect that. So your culture determines what you wear, what you eat, how you live. You can look at that with like cultural eating restrictions and some food groups that are banned, etc. Now, family and roles is also going to affect it. Now, obviously, family roles are always going to change and differ. But for example, I know when I was learning about it in class, something our teacher was talking about was laundry detergent. And a lot of the time, when you're looking at laundry detergent ads, they'll have like a mum and a baby, and the mum is like washing, I don't know, sheets for like a really, really cute baby. Because at least stereotypically, when they're looking at who's buying this product, it is more often women. So they're going to market it to that to women because of that social cultural influence. But that's just an example. And again, with family and roles, you do have to be careful with, and even just saying that, I had to be very intentional with my wording, because family and roles are changing in society. So definitely make sure that if you are going to talk about the social cultural influences, just to take note of just the wording that you're saying, because you don't want to make one of those kind of generalizations, all men mow the lawn. Most do, most do, but in any case, even with, I can't say all women do laundry, because obviously men do laundry as well, and there's different roles in different families. So just be careful with your wording. Probably waffle on my end, but you never know with markers. I don't know. One thing I want to tell you guys, and I really should say it more often. I wish I kind of clicked onto it earlier throughout year 12, but I thankfully did by the end of year 12. You don't know who's marking your HSC. You do not know who your marker is. You don't know if that marker is the happiest teacher in the world, absolutely loves their career, or is going through a divorce. You're the 50th paper and they're reading the same thing and they hate your handwriting. You don't know who the marker is. And little things, even just like that, if I made like a really generalized comment about social cultural influences in a short answer, for example, and I said, all women buy laundry detergent, so laundry detergent companies only market to women by putting women in their ads. Something like that could really annoy a marker, maybe to the point where they take off a mark. And even if they weren't to take off a mark from it, it just kind of adds that bias and just adds like a negative kind of vibe to their marking for you. And what we want to do is brownie points always. Brownie points always. We want brownie points. You want to suck up. That's just how it is. You want to suck up to your marker. You want to show off to them. You want to look. You want to be like, hey, look at me. Because realistically, you're being compared to thousands and thousands of students across the state in that one sitting. You, like I said, you could be the 99th paper out of 100. They've just read 98 versions of the same answer and they're ready to read yours. You want yours to stand out. You want yours, to show them that you're a bit different, have, those brownie point moments where, you have a really good definition, or you use a really powerful form of terminology, etc. And something like this, and something like a generalization or just kind of like a weak commentary, can just really weaken your response. So I know that's something little, but it's across all your subjects. Just be very careful with your wording, especially when it comes to some of the topics like this. And if you're coming up with your own case studies, or you need a waffle, just make sure you're being careful. But look at this little advice session. This is a little lecture. And finally is your reference and your peer groups, which are groups with significant influential power. So for example, your friendship groups are also going to influence the products you buy. If my friend is like, I know one of my friends was like, oh, this toner from Glow Recipe is so good. And I needed a toner. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to go get that toner as well. I didn't look around for other ones because I've got that influence from my own friend. So again, you can think about your own friends, and when your friends say like, oh, this is really good, or oh, I shop here, all of a sudden you want to shop there too. Oh, this book is good. Oh, I'm going to go buy that book too. Like, that's just the influence of those different social cultural factors. So a good example for social cultural influences is McDonald's. Because I'm sure a lot of you guys know and have seen it online that in different geographical areas there's different menus. So for example, in Indonesia, meals are served with rice rather than fries. And in Muslim countries, the company's pork McRib is unavailable. So you can see that in different geographical areas, there's different alterations, and that's all to match the different social cultural factors of different geographics and demographics. Now, economic influences, I'm not sure if any of you guys watching this do economics, but it doesn't get too much into it. It's not too deep into it. Economic forces influences the business's capacity to compete and the customer's ability to spend. So when it comes to the economy can either be in a boom or recession. So a boom is when the economy is performing well, incomes are increasing, everybody's making more money, unemployment's low, everybody's working, businesses and consumers are optimistic, everyone's just really happy, there's so much money in the economy, let's all spend more, and let's go shopping. And because everybody's shopping, businesses have to produce more, which means they're hiring more people and they're making more money, which is going into people's pockets, so then they can spend more. Basically, the boom, I just think like sunshine, rainbows, everybody's happy, everybody's spending. So when economically that's happening, a business is obviously going to perform better, and the marketing approach is going to succeed more because naturally there is higher demand. Recession is the complete opposite. Think rain, storms, sadness, crying. High unemployment, a lot of people aren't working. There's falling incomes, people aren't making as much. Lower consumer and business confidence, so consumers aren't really feeling the vibe, like customers aren't really going out shopping as much. And because of that, there's less spending, which means that there's less demand, so there's less production, which means that there's less jobs because there's not as much demand going on for people for them to even need to produce that much anymore. It's a complete opposite. So when I think of recession, a really good example is COVID. You can think about how high unemployment was. A lot of people lost their jobs. There was also the physical restriction that you could not go and shop, but obviously a lot of businesses closed down because they weren't making enough money. People didn't want to spend because they were struggling with their incomes, and they weren't making the same money because they weren't working as often, or they had lost their jobs, which meant decreased spending, which meant a lot of businesses shut down because the demand wasn't there. So like I said, with boom, I always think like, rainbow, sunshine, employment, money, income, everything's going up, and recession is down. And the way the economy works is that it's always going to be up and down depending on the different factors that are influencing that. Now, government influences are the government influence policies that are designed to expand or contract spending in the economy and influence business activities. So, for example, when they create taxes or they implement laws that restrict certain activities or influence pricing, they do this to influence businesses and consumers. So, for example, cigarette packaging, how they've got those like really horrifying photos on the front is to try and contract that spending. Competition and Consumer Act of 2010 is the main piece of law that we're going to look at a little bit more in depth soon. But that promotes fair trading and competition, and it protects consumers from unfair practices. So, for example, after the global financial crisis in 2008, consumers were given $900 as a part of the fiscal stimulus package to encourage spending. So that was when the world was in a recession and the economy was completely defeated. And consumers in Australia were given $900 as like a stimulus, as kind of like an influence to encourage spending. So Australians were given $900 each, and because they had this new money, everyone was like, oh, I'm going to go shopping now. I'm going to go spend that. And that's a way that the government influenced spending, which then is going to obviously affect marketing and the conditions to then sell and buy that product and go and shop. So, a good case study, again, we're back at Qantas. So, psychologically, a lot of people care about comfort, safety, reliability of the flight, and that's going to affect who they fly with. Socioculturally, your social class can influence the type of ticket you buy. So, whether you buy an economy ticket, business class, or first class, that's going to come down to your social class. Economically, travel is a discretionary spend, which means that it's just that extra money. Like, you've got some extra money, you've got some saving. Oh, I'm going to travel. If you were really struggling with money, or money was a little bit tight, the last thing you're going to be thinking is, yeah, I'm going to travel the world. You're trying to make it through. So travel is definitely a discretionary spend. When you've got that extra money, you're like, might as well, I'm going to go on a holiday. But if there was a downturn in economic activity and the economy was in recession and you were struggling with unemployment and a lower income, etc., that recession would actually discourage buying flight tickets because money's tight and the economy isn't performing too well. And when the economy is in a recession, flight companies really do struggle. Government implements a contractionary fiscal policy that reduces expenditure in the economy and thus discourages buying plane tickets. So, for example, the government has made sure that there's multiple flight companies so that there can be competition, rather than only, like there's Qantas and there's Tiger and there's Scoot and there's Emirates and there's Qatar Airways and there's all these different flight companies that you can fly with, rather than just one company that gains all that profit. So the government wants competition. That's good for the economy, and it's good for businesses and for work, and it just has so many benefits. Also for them, the more businesses, the more taxes in their earnings. So from a government perspective, competition is really important, and that's what they've implemented with different policy. Now, when we're looking at consumer laws, in 2011, the Australian Consumer Law, which you can put as ACL in brackets, was introduced. So businesses had to ensure that, and they still have to ensure that they're up to date with current laws and that they apply them to marketing practices so that they can avoid reputational capital being destroyed. So the main law is the Competition and Consumer Act of 2010, which has the two main purposes. And it's really important that you understand these two, because this does come up a lot in short answers, but also in multiple choice. So the first one is to protect consumers against undesirable practices, so making sure that they're not experiencing fraud and they're getting scammed, but also to regulate certain trade practices that restrict competition. The government wants competition. The more competition, the better for the company, the better for the economy, the more jobs, the more taxes, which it's going to benefit the government, etc. So when there's only one company that does one job, the government is not happy. They want multiple companies competing. They love when businesses compete. It's all benefiting the economy. And that's what the Competition and Consumer Act is really regulating. So when you look here, we've got competition, which is here. They're making sure that that the trade and the market doesn't restrict competition. And the consumer part is coming from protecting consumers. So it's regulating competition and protecting consumers. That's 2 points I'd like you guys to take away about the Competition and Consumer Act of 2010. And the ACCC, which is the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, are the regulator of this act. This is where it gets like a little bit confusing. Again, some of you guys might do legal studies and might have heard of this act before, or even if you haven't done legal studies and you've come into interaction with it. But with these acts, this is just a piece of policy now. If you say, oh, the Competition Consumer Act of 2010, that's just a piece of legislation. The ones that are actually putting into that and regulating it, and the actual group and that body that's, you know, really putting it into practice and making sure that these purposes are achieved, is this, which is the ACCC. And you guys will come across it with ASIC as well later when you get towards finance. But there's different regulators of acts. So it's really important that you understand, okay, this is the law. This is who's putting the law into action and making sure that it's being carried out. So businesses can face fines upwards of $1.1 million, public warning notices, and trade restrictions if they participate in unfair trade practices. What that does is bring negative attention to the business, which deters customers, and then sales and profits drop. Sorry, I need a really quick drink of water because I already feel my throat tapping out. So what I want you guys to look at here, not only can the businesses face fines and lose money financially, so up to 1.1 million here, but on top of that, if that gets into the news, or, you know, if someone posts a TikTok, I remember, I think like 3 weeks ago, I saw a hairdresser in Sydney, like a lady posted like, oh, like, look what they did to my mum. And I'm sure some of you guys might recognize this. And all the comments were like, wow, like, I'd never go here. I went onto the business online. I was looking at their Google reviews, and the entire reputation, like, this whole business got cancelled from one TikTok, And it's just proof that if a business isn't participating in fair trade or is not protecting their customers, etc., and you know, regulating their practices, not only can they face fines and suffer, but in this case also their reputation and the attention can actually cause sales and profits to drop. So unconscionable conduct is practices any business that is just not reasonable and illegal. And what the ACCC can do, which they're the ones that are putting in that Competition Consumer Act into practice, that law, and really regulating it, is they can do on the spot infringement notices, where on the spot they can go to a business and be like, okay, you're not keeping up with our laws, 6,600 fine right now. So following consumer laws is so important for a business, not just from a reputation perspective, but also from like a financial perspective. If you're facing these fines, that's going to affect your profit. And what does that mean? They're not achieving profit maximization, because this is an unnecessary cost now. You can just follow the law and get away from these fines and avoid them if you just do the right thing. So obviously this is a cost now that can really cost the business financially, but also in their reputation, which is then also going to cost them financially, because if a business gets cancelled or it has a bad reputation, they're not going there. If I, you know, like, oh, I want to go out for dinner, searching up some places, if I see bad reviews, I'm not going to go. If I see like, oh, the service was really bad, or they burnt my food, and I'm seeing like a couple, I'm like, okay, I'm not going there. And I'm sure you guys are the same. I want you to think about businesses that you've come across, or businesses that you know have gotten cancelled. There's so many online, and how that negative perception or that bad reputation has affected your relationship with that business, and if you'd ever even go back there after you've seen something negative online about that business. That can really help show you. So the 4 consumer laws are deceptive and misleading advertising, price discrimination, implied conditions, and warranties. So we're going to go through these ones. This is probably my favorite one. So deceptive advertising is where a business uses deceptive wording or includes false claims when describing the characteristics of their product. So basically it's complete BS. So examples include fine print, country of origin. So in the fine print, they're like, you know, they put something really small. So here, let's look at this for example. Less wrinkles in only minutes. She went from like 80 to 20 in only minutes. But then you look down here, that's not even the same person. First of all, that is not the same person. Second of all, in the fine print, simulated imagery. But in the fine print, they're not putting simulated imagery in, you know, big, bold, full caps. They're putting it in fine print. And that's an example of deceptive advertising, because when you look at this, simulated imagery isn't the first thing I look at. I'm looking at this lady's overnight glow up. Like, not even overnight. In a couple minutes, she glowed up completely. So, That's an example of fine print. And I always like, if you're going to write about deceptive advertising, I think this is such an easy way to talk about. You can also, I'm not sure if you guys have ever watched that shopping channel, but there's a shopping channel on like the normal TV. I always see it at my grandparents' house, and they promote like fat shakes and fitness equipment that will change your body, and they make these crazy claims, and use like before and after advertising of people to show like all these results, and it's just wild. But I want you guys to think, and I'm sure you've seen other ads like this. I know I've definitely seen acne products that are like improve results in like 3 days. 3 days. So there's also before and after advertising, special offers and packaging. All of that's going to make a difference and can deceive you. Because they're just making false claims. Now, the two main techniques for misleading and deceptive advertising. So the first one is dishonest advertising, where they're using words that are deceptive and they're making claims about the products that they don't actually possess. That's the easier one to write about because a lot of us are pretty familiar with it. Here is dishonest advertising because obviously sis is not getting less wrinkles in only minutes. She's getting more wrinkles by the minute. And the other one is bait and switch advertising. Now, a really good example of this is car dealerships. So, what they do, they advertise a few products at a reduced price. Then customers are like, oh, look at this, it's really cheap. I want to go buy one. But then they go to the store, they see that the cheaper products run out, and the customers are redirected to a higher price product. That was a bit hard for me to understand when I first learned it. And this is just an example of how, when you have an example of the business, and if you can kind of understand it in your own way, or you can relate it to your own experience, the content actually makes a lot more sense and is easier to talk and write about. So with bait and switch advertising, when it comes to a car dealership, for example, they can be like, we've got $20,000 Mercedes cars, come and get one. You drive past and you see like 20,000 Mercedes, and you're like, wow, that's so cheap for a Merc, like I'm gonna go buy one. They've advertised the product at a reduced price. So, okay, look, it's 20K, it's cheaper. Customers are enticed, and customers are like, oh, I'm going to go buy this Merc. But let's say when they get to the car dealership, there was only 5 Mercs at 20K. And they're like, oh, sorry, we've sold out. But here's a 30K Merc. Here's our 40K Merc. And you're already there as the customer. Doesn't mean you're going to leave with it. But a lot of the time customers do, because they're going for one product. It's not there. And to kind of get over that lack of satisfaction, they're kind of then influenced to buy something with even better features, but obviously coming at a higher price. So that is an example. Now, the case study here is Nurofen. And this is a really interesting case study that you can use, but they participated in deceptive and misleading advertising in 2016 because they made false and misleading claims about their Nurofen specific pain products. And they said, okay, this is Nurofen specific pain. It was like a brand new product. The outside said Nurofen specific pain. And they said, oh, this Nurofen, usually when you take Nurofen, you can take Nurofen for anything if you're feeling sick, or Panadol. But this Nurofen was for a specific type of pain, and that's why it's called Nurofen specific pain. But it was actually discovered that they were identical to normal Nurofen. So inside this Nurofen specific pain packaging was the normal Nurofen pills in this packaging, but they were charging double for a new box, for a different product. But all that had changed was the packaging. It was the same product inside, and they're charging double. So they actually found this out about Nurofen, and the ACCC took action. The federal court ordered them to pay $6 million as a civil remedy, and then $4.5 million to settle a class action suit. That's $10.5 million for their lying and their deception. But on top of that, yes, you've got that financial cost, but this detrimentally impacted their reputation capital, and it's seen them still to now this day have a decrease in sales and profitability. They helped Panadol rise up. Panadol is on the rise because they are on their downfall. Nurofen literally getting cancelled because they're lying, especially when it comes to medication and your health. A lot of people felt very betrayed and just not content and supported that a medical company is lying about the products and is so deceptive and immoral. And that affected their reputation. So yes, they've gotten charged in costs, and like I said before, there is that financial impact, but on top of that is the reputation capital, and reputation is a capital. If your business has a good reputation, people will buy from it. People will buy from it even if they don't want a certain product or they don't need a certain product. Because the business has a good reputation, they will buy from there. So for example, Mecca, I know Mecca has a good reputation, Sephora has a good reputation. I will walk into Mecca even if I don't want or need anything. I'm always going to want something from Mecca, for reference. Even if I don't need anything, I'm going to walk into Mecca because I know they have good products. I know the service is always going to be good and someone's always going to help me. The store is always going to be clean, so I'm going to go in there and I support the brands and the products in there. I'm always going to go in there because it's got a good reputation. In comparison to other brands that don't have the best reputation and that I don't see in the same way, that is actually, they decrease their sales and profits because they've lost me as a customer. So I want you guys to think about businesses that you know that have a really good reputation and that you perceive really highly in comparison to one that you know doesn't have the best reputation. I think a really good example for the not having the best reputation is Shein. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen stuff, especially on TikTok, about Shein. But they're an example of not having the best reputation, and they have had a decrease in their sales and profitability. A lot of people still do buy from Shein, and obviously that's a personal choice. But because of just concerns with production and ethics and environmentally and ethically, some of the decisions they're making in that business, they have also seen a decrease in sales and profitability because of their reputation. So don't think, oh, it's just financial. Their reputation is so important because that's affecting the perception of the customers. But in the end, it still ends up being financial because if it has a bad reputation, you're not making money. You're not getting the sales, babes. That's not happening. Now let's talk about price discrimination, which is the setting of different prices for the same product in different markets. So they can do this because of geographical separation or product differentiation. So basically that means, let's say I've got makeup brushes, for example, but I'm in one area that has a higher socioeconomic class than another, and because this class has higher, I'm going to charge them more than I am in an area in Sydney that doesn't have as high of a social economic class, for example. So they're changing the prices depending on where you are or who's buying it. So a really good example, and one that helped me understand this because I was a bit confused. I was like, what do you mean, like, different prices for the same, like, they can't, for the same product, like, they can't do that. Basically, Melbourne Airport got charged and accused by the ACCC because they were using it for their parking fee. So if you had booked and made an online booking for parking at Melbourne Airport and you booked it online, they were 66.5% cheaper than if you just bought a physical ticket. But that's price discrimination now because it's the same product, you're getting the same parking spot, but you get it cheaper if you bought it online. But what that does is it discriminates people who don't have access to buying a ticket online. So for example, the older generation or the elderly who, you know, might not feel as confident buying a ticket online, and they're just like, okay, I'm going to go to the airport, I'm going to park my car. Why do they have to suffer now and pay a higher amount just because they didn't have access to this cheaper amount? Like, it should, if it's the same product, it should be the same price, and the ACCC recognizes that. Now, implied conditions are the unspoken and unwritten terms of a contract. It basically says that any product a consumer buys is going to imply with how they were described that they are of that quality and that they're fit for the purpose. And products have to satisfy customer guarantees, which is a set of rights that were developed by the ACL to make sure that there's remedies in case a product is defective. And that's when we get into warranties, which we're going to look at after. But basically, if you go to, I keep using makeup examples, I'm very sorry, but if you go to Priceline and you buy a makeup remover and it doesn't remove the makeup, it is implied when you buy the makeup remover that the makeup remover will remove the makeup. And in any product that you buy, it is implied that the product complies with the function and the purpose that's intended, and that it's fit for purpose, and that you got what was described. If it says, here's a cleanser, here's a body cream, you would think this is going to cleanse me. You know, like, that's just implied. So that's not like spoken or written all of the time. It's kind of just implied, but that's what those conditions are. And that comes under the consumer laws as well, because there's these customer guarantees that all customers are guaranteed and they have the right and responsibility to receive when they buy a product. Finally is warranties, which are promises made by businesses that they will correct any defects in the goods that they produce or the services that they deliver. The purpose of the warranty is to ensure consumers believe in the confidence of the quality of the product and will repair anything if it's faulty. Now, by law, businesses need to provide a refund if the product's faulty, if it doesn't match the description or the sample, and if it's not fit for purpose. But there's no obligation for businesses to provide a refund if the customers change their mind, or if they found it cheaper elsewhere, or if they damaged it themselves. So, for example, if I buy a shirt now and I just grab a pair of scissors and cut off the sleeve and I go back and I'm like, oh, I want a refund. By law, they are not obliged to give me a refund. But if I buy a shirt and I still got the tag on it and I notice that there's a tear in it, or I put it on and it rips, obviously the product is faulty and I can gain a refund. So it is important that you kind of just understand these 3 points. But like it says here, if you just change your mind on it, not all companies are going to provide that refund. A really good example of a warranties case study is Crumpler, and they go beyond the current legal framework to adopt an extensive warranty policy. So their refund, their warranty policy is till death do us part. And obviously that's going to surpass the minimum legal warranty requirements, because there are different requirements for warranties and like the minimum amount of time that you need to be able to provide that. But they've got this customer trust and this retention, and they've actually received higher sale profits, more of a market share, and greater reliability and more loyalty from their customers, because they've got this policy where if you buy a product from us, we will cover it for the rest of its lifetime. Until you die, you have warranty on that product, which a lot of the time warranty means that, you know, if the product stops working, or, you know, there's some type of error, they'll fix it for free. Like that's part of their service. It's under warranty because you bought it. Imagine, like, for example, you buy, I don't know, like a fridge, but for the rest of your life you can keep that fridge and they'll keep fixing it for free, and you never have to buy a fridge ever again because they have this till death do us part policies. That's just an example, but obviously and that's why when you see cars advertised in like 20-year warranty, people are like, 20-year warranty. That's actually something that is used in marketing to market the product more, because customers are more likely to go towards a product that has higher warranty than one that has less. Then we get to ethical criticisms. So common criticisms of business include the creation of needs through materialism, stereotypical images of men and women, and this is what I was talking about before with the laundry detergent ad, and how I was saying most women buy family roles. It's really important, and businesses are criticized when they being very stereotypical with the type of images that they're portraying. Product placement, whether they're appealing it through indirect influence or it's really manipulative. I'm sure you guys have seen product placement in movies, or even in like, I see it on TikTok all the time, but it's just so obvious that they're marketing it, and they're like, you know, the Coke can is like right there in the movie and you just know. But also invasion of privacy. And the ethical influences of marketing are truth, accuracy, and good taste in advertising, products that can damage health, engaging in fair competition, and sugging. So truth, accuracy, and good taste in advertising all comes down to advertising, which is the paid non-personal message. Advertising is just communicating a message to a mass medium. Now, there's obviously different ways you can advertise, whether you do that on social media or you advertise in Times Square on like a massive billboard, or, you know, when you're driving on the M4, or on a highway and you see the big billboards, in magazines and newspapers. There's advertising everywhere. But unethical marketing practices drive customers away. They reduce sales, profit, and market share. And there's 3 main ways they can do that. They can be untruthful by concealing facts, so not telling the whole truth about a product. So, for example, I know with a lot of beauty products, they're marketed, you know, as really beneficial for you, but then maybe they have one product that can actually trigger acne, or maybe they have fragrance in it which people can react to, and they're kind of purposely keeping those facts from you, and being untruthful to really boost the look of the product, and obviously that's not the best taste in advertising. Exaggerated claims is also called puffery, but it's where they really exaggerate the praise, and we kind of saw it before with like the like wrinkles gone in only minutes, but it's really where they're like, oh, like, we'll change your skin barrier, this changed my life, like just really exaggerated claims about the products that you can just tell are not true. And vague statements, which is when they really using ambiguous words that can be misinterpreted. So good taste refers to inoffensive, aware of community sensitives, and just having like a clean reputation. So for example, There's been a recent widespread publicity surrounding sexualizing children, and any brands that have engaged with that have been cancelled. I'm sure some of you guys would have seen that online and in the news. But good taste is that, you know, ads are ethical and they're moral and they're not offensive and they're not discriminatory, etc. Products that may damage health is all the ethical issue that's really got, when you're talking about this dot point, it's really got to do with prominent advertising to children. So the federal government has actually set restrictions that means that during preschool programming, there's no junk food advertising because of higher child obesity rates. And businesses have found ways around this by instead advertising junk food through apps and social media instead. But this is just an example, as you know, for children, a product that may damage health is a lot of junk food. So the government has come in now, and it's also an example now of government influence of how they can use their power to set restrictions and to limit that marketing. Engaging in fair competition. So businesses are often tempted to compete in the market unfairly because of the scales of the firms they're up against. Because of that, the CCA deters and regulates this anti-competitive behavior by limiting and restricting competition. So this again comes back to the Competition and Consumer Act of 2010, and it's why it's really important that you guys know, okay, well, the main law for marketing is the Competition and Consumer Act. The two goals are profit maximization and customer orientation. The differences between selling and marketing approach is this and this, and just kind of having those like quick facts just on your belt, and really like these are the main takeaways I want for you guys. All these extra little dot points, I don't need you to know every single dot point on this slide, but if you can take away knowing, okay, businesses need to engage in fair competition because the Competition and Consumer Act of 2010, which is the main piece of legislation in marketing, deters and regulates that behavior. That's all I need you to know. That's all your girl needs you to know. But anti-competitive behavior includes like exclusive dealings or like resale price maintenance and, you know, reselling for a higher cost. I see it all the time with shoes. All the time. If any of you guys are shoe heads and you know like resellers go crazy on the price, which just actually like limits competition, and it's very like anti-competitive when as well as like resellers who sell stuff like all at the same price, so that people aren't like are always buying from like one person and not competing with each other. Like I said, the government wants businesses to compete because it's creating more jobs, more economic opportunities, more spending, and also more taxes. So fair competition is very, very important. And the final one is sugging, which is selling under the guise of a survey. So I'm not sure if you guys, surely this can't be a niche experience. You know when you go to the shops and there's people there like, hey, want to do this survey? Hey, can you quickly answer this question? Or like they're quickly just like randomly talking to you. You guys know, surely you guys know. But it's illegal and it's unethical because it's actually market research. And it brings in these issues of invasion of privacy and deception, especially with survey. Like, oh, like, do this survey for us. For example, like, oh, do you mind like answering a couple survey questions? Will you like answer this like 3-question survey? And you put in your email, you put in your phone number, you put in your full name. They've got all these details about you now. But a lot of the times, you know, sometimes those surveys are for real and they are using it as like they are using it for real purposes, but a lot of the times it's just market research and it's to invade your privacy. And you guys surely know, you put on your email, like I don't put my email down very often anymore because I know if I put my email down for a business or at a shop, I'm getting emails for the rest of my life. That is it. That is it. Stacks, for example, I bought like from them once and I put my email down. I didn't even need to. Peace out. Goodbye. Stacks, I should like emails for the rest of my life. Daily. I try to unsubscribe. I literally can't get rid of them. And I'm sure you guys have businesses like that. So again, think about companies that you ever done a survey, you know, just to be nice, or, you know, answered a quick question like, oh, go into the running if you answer this question. And in the end, you end up on their marketing list. You're getting all these texts from them and these emails from them. And because of this, you can actually use this stat that 1 out of 3 consumers refuse to answer surveys because they think it's sugging. Sometimes it's obviously not sugging, but sugging is just selling under the guise of a survey, and they're trying to make you buy a product by answering some survey questions. But obviously, it's not how it is. let's move to strategies and wrap this up before we get to our study tips, most important. But I know like I haven't been like bam on content and going like 100 content, and I've kind of been going off into some different tips as well. But like I said, I don't expect you guys to leave this and be able to write a marketing essay. You guys are going to learn this over a whole term, and this is 2 hours. What's more, like, I know you guys will learn this in class, and there's textbooks and there's online videos and there's so much you can access, but hearing tips from students is not as accessible, so I wanted to put it in. You're probably tired of my voice. I'm very sorry. I'm probably getting repetitive. I hope you enjoy watching me drink my water. But hopefully this is helpful. And like I said, I will be in the chat. So if you guys have any questions, or if you're watching this afterwards, hopefully you can have a read through. And the chat is actually going off, and we're having a chat, and we can go through this. So with strategies, we're going to look at market segmentation first, which is when the entire market is subdivided into different groups of people who share one or more common characteristics. So basically we've got the market of the whole world, because basically everyone is consumers, and we're going to split it into the different different segments. So we've got based on the demographics, based on geographic location, based on different behaviors, and based on different psychographics. So geographic segmentation is dividing the total market according to geographics. So the marketing mix is obviously going to differ from geographic region to another. So for example, consumers in Jindabyne need chains and heavy outdoor clothing. In Jindabyne, you're not going to see a Billabong store. City Beach, you are going to see a lot of outdoor and like snow stores, because that's the geographic. So the city size and the climate are obviously going to be important variables in that geographic segmentation. There's demographic segmentation, which is dividing the total market according to particular features of the population. So you've got population size, the age, the income, and gender. Depending on different people's ages, they're going to market things differently. You're going to market things differently to an 18-year-old compared to an 80-year-old. For example, in different ways to market that too. For an 18-year-old, you're going to go to social media, you're going to promote it on TikTok, you're probably going to get an influencer to do an unboxing of your product. For an 80-year-old, best believe it's in the newspaper or in a magazine or a physical ad at the shops, for example. Psychographic segmentation is dividing the total market according to personality characteristics, the different motives, opinions, different lifestyles. So for example, an average Toyota Corolla owner compared with an average Porsche owner will respond differently to costs of vehicle maintenance, insurance, etc. You're going to put a lot more, you would think, insurance on a Porsche than you would on a Toyota Corolla, because it's cheaper to just buy a new Corolla instead of just buying a new Porsche. And behavioral segmentation is dividing the total market according to the customer's relationship with the product, which is the customer's knowledge, their attitude, the use of product, and the benefits from the product. So for example, Qantas categorizes flights by trip purpose and spending patterns. So they separate low cost Jetstar with premium Qantas. So Qantas is premium. Qantas has higher features, better planes, better seats, for example, while Jetstar is lower cost and it's cheaper, but they don't have that same premium effect, and maybe the seating or the menu isn't as premium and as high quality, just for example. But that's all going to depend on the customer's different behaviors, and whether they want that cost saving behavior or they want that premium behavior. So psychographic and behavioral can get like pretty hand in hand, but psychographic is much more about like the personality and their motives, while behavioral is more about the actual product and that use and the different benefits from the product. Product service differentiation is the process of developing and promoting differences between the products and services to its competitors, and businesses are always looking ways to differentiate their products from competitors. If every product was the same, think about, I was about to say another makeup one, but I'm not going to. Think about, it's just so easy giving you guys makeup ones, but I can't give you another one. Think about, this is bad. Let's do a laptop, because laptops are obviously differentiated. Yes, laptops are all going to perform the same function. You can use the laptop, go on Google, write stuff, take notes, etc. But different laptops have different features. Now, whether you buy a Mac, etc., what you're going to look at is the customer service. So when you go to the Apple store compared to when you go to JB Hi-Fi, or you go to Bingley, etc. The environmental concerns, the convenience, the social and ethical issues, the value for money, all of these different factors are going to affect the product. Now, if every store sold every product like exactly the same, there wouldn't be competition. There wouldn't be competition. There wouldn't even be the opportunity to charge different prices. And that's why you can buy a laptop for a couple hundred, or you can buy a laptop for a couple thousand, because the products are differentiated even though it's the same product. And that same kind of base product, because of different features, because of different value for money, because of different perceptions and reputations, and because of different customer service, and all of these factors are going to affect that. I love writing about product service differentiation because this is a very easy one to waffle. I know for a fact all of you guys, even if you like this is the first time you've ever heard this, you could everybody watching this could easily waffle about product service differentiation because we're all used to it. I can go to Lululemon and buy a $130 jacket, or I can go to Kmart and buy a $15 dupe. What's the difference? You know, what's coming into difference there? Is it the quality? Is it the service that I'm getting it? Is it the value? You guys know it. So it's a technique which markets try to create an image or identity for a product compared with the images of its competing products, and explores how potential buyers perceive the product. So a really good example of that is, like I said, Jetstar and Qantas. So Jetstar has all the non-essential features removed because it keeps the price low, while Qantas is the more luxurious choice, and they're very big on marketing strategies on the corporate market. So that's just an example of how either way you're getting the same service. You're catching a plane, you're catching a flight, and you're getting on a plane, but there's obviously different, and they differentiate the experience and that service in the customer service that they give, but also all the features and the benefits. So products are goods and services that can be offered in exchange for the purpose of satisfying a need, and their tangible and intangible products is the total product concept. So the product is the satisfactions, the brand name, the package, the warranties, but there's also intangibles of the product, which is the untouchable benefits. So the feeling of satisfaction, the safety, the prestige of having the newest iPhone, for example, or having the safest car, or driving a Tesla, for example. All that satisfaction that comes with that is intangible. You can't physically, I can't touch how happy I am to have a new phone, but you can feel that, and it's like untouchable. Branding is really important. And like guys, I love the strategies in marketing because they're just so fun to write about, because you don't need to know every single point. Again, you guys know what a brand is. You guys know that a brand, like, there's nothing that you would read on this page that you wouldn't know. You know, and that's the best part about marketing, is that we're already so aware of it. So hopefully this is a bit easier to take in than some of the consumer laws and, you know, the economic recession and some of those other bigger ideas. But the brand is obviously going to affect the marketing of the product, and the better known a brand is, the more iconic that brand is, or the better reputation capital associated with that brand, the better those outcomes you're going to see. So branding is going to help consumers because it helps them identify the specific products they like. They evaluate the quality based on that brand, and they can gain that psychological reward from buying from that brand, especially if it has like the prestige and status, which comes a lot with branding of designer brands. But it also helps businesses because they can gain repeat sales, because people are like, oh, I've bought from this brand before, they're really good. It also helps them introduce new products if you already have your brand developed. So for example, Apple like came out with the Apple Watch, and everyone was like, yeah, we're going to buy that just because it was Apple. But if a random brand new company came out with the same product, they wouldn't see that success. It also encourages customer loyalty because, like we said, if you're buying from one brand, like me, for example, I bought my iPhone. So when I went to uni, I was like, okay, I'm going to get a Mac. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get AirPods now too. And if I was to get a watch, it would be an Apple Watch, just so everything, you know, aligns with that brand. But that's how they're getting that customer loyalty and those repeat sales. Packaging is really important as well because it serves as a form of communication with the customers, and it's the graphic design of the product. So the benefits of packaging includes obviously that it preserves and protects the product, but it also attracts consumer attention, and it assists with the display of the product and makes the transportation and storage easier. But I know you guys surely know someone. Surely you guys know someone, or maybe it's even you. And I used to do this as well. Like if you bought like a nice product, or maybe you got like a designer bag or something, had like a nice box, you put it on display. My worst era, I think I was like 9 years old, and Starbucks had just come to Australia, and I put my Starbucks cup, like after I got a drink, I washed it, and I put my Starbucks cup with the straw like on my shelf as like a decoration. Let's not talk about it, but that was my way of like, I loved the packaging and the association. I was like, oh, I went to Starbucks, I'm all that. Thought I was so cool. I don't know why I'm admitting this online. Anyways, but it's just an example of like, it's also the perception when you're talking about consumer influence and the psychographic influences too. 9-year-old me thought she was all that. She thought she was all that because she had the nice Starbucks cup that she drank from on the shelf. So packaging can also affect the attitude and the perception. Um, Labeling is so important, especially when it comes to food. And I know all of you guys have learned this in PDHPE. But according to New South Wales Food Authority, there are obviously food labeling requirements that they have to do, such as country of origin, the ingredients, identification of the lot number, the date mark, and the expiry, etc. Now, labeling isn't actually on the business studies syllabus, but it's important that you write about it when you're talking about packaging and branding, because again, it's just something. It's one of those brownie points where it's like, oh, everyone's going to write if they're asked about this product or point, everybody's going to write about branding and packaging because that's in the syllabus. But now, like I said, if you're that marker, it's 12 o'clock, you're going through divorce, you literally hate your life, you want to leave teaching, and you're up to this 99th paper again, reading about packaging and branding. How nice to see somebody just, add in labeling and talk about the presentation of the information on the package and how that is in line with government regulations. Just such a random point, still obviously connected, but not 100% necessary to write about, but adds that extra dimension, brownie point, and now they've got a better, and they're like, wow, this student knows what they're talking about, and it can actually improve their bias as they're reading and kind of improve their mood. And then we get to price, which is the amount of money a customer is prepared to offer in exchange for a product. It's really important, and one of the biggest mistakes that people make in the HSC is that they confuse pricing methods with pricing strategies, but they're two different things. So what a business does first is they set, using a price method, a base price, and then they use different strategies at different times to adjust that price. So for example, when the new phone comes out, they set that base price, but if I go and buy an iPhone 10 now, it's a lot cheaper than when the iPhone 10 first came out, because now there's heaps more phones that have come out since. So they started with that pricing method, and then throughout time, they've just adjusted different strategies. So the first pricing method is cost-based pricing, which is where they use the cost of production and purchasing the product and then add a markup, and the markup is the added value. So the disadvantage of this is that it's really difficult to determine the appropriate markup, and the product is priced after production, so it doesn't look at other parts of the marketing mix. They're only taking in the cost of production. They're not talking about how much it's going to cost to market it, the focus groups and all the research. It's just the cost of production, so it's not always the best indicator of the entire costs. It's just the cost of production, and again, that markup, it's hard to decide what that markup is. And I'm sure, again, I've been speaking a lot about designer bags, but I feel like when you're talking about designer brands, especially in marketing, it's a really good case study because you can bring it up in consumer choice, you can bring it up in role, but you can also bring it up here with pricing and the difference in, again, going to Colette and buying a quick bag or going to Louis Vuitton and buying a bag. But obviously the markup on designer bags is going to be greater because that's the value that they think comes with the designer brand and the prestige of that brand in comparison to the markup on a Kmart tote, for example, compared to a Dior tote, for example. Market-based pricing is methods that set the price according to the interaction between level of supply and demand. So when demand is greater than supply, the price is going to increase because people are going to buy it. The demand is there. So they're like, you know what? Lots of people want this. Let's increase the price. But when supply is bigger and there's lots of products and not as many people are buying them, the price actually goes cheaper. And you see that in like sale products, and they're just trying to get rid of it. So it's cheaper and people are buying it. So obviously the price of business products fluctuate as the market changes. So for example, Qantas is consistently using this method. When there's downturns in the demand for plane tickets, so in really kind of off months and not a lot of people flying, maybe it's, it's not school holidays or people don't have work break, and obviously over Christmas and Easter periods, a lot of people are traveling for family. So because that demand is high, they can charge more in comparison to the middle of winter, no school holidays, etc., that's when they will actually lower the prices, and people are like, hey, like, look how cheap it is to fly right now. And they'll do it. So those are the pricing methods. And finally, we've got competition-based pricing, which is where they cover the production costs, but they also make sure it's comparable to the competitors. So here you can do a price above competitors, a price below competitors, or a price equal to competitors. But what Qantas has done, their main competitor is Virgin, so they've really tried to budget, and they also brought in Jetstar as their domestic carrier, their budget domestic carrier, so that they could have pretty equal prices with Virgin, but then also have this domestic carrier that has prices below, and then they can compete even further. But competition-based pricing is when you're purposely picking prices that can compete with your customers, whether that's above, below, or equal. Now, those are the three methods. So that's how, when a business comes out with a product, they're like, okay, I'm going to do market-based pricing. Okay, I'm going to do competition-based pricing. Then they apply these strategies on top to get and reap those benefits, depending on what kind of avenue and the different goals that they've got and their different intentions. First is price skimming, with the business charges the highest possible price for their production. Apple is the best example of this. When the phone first comes out, it's got the highest possible price. They do this during the introduction of its life cycle because people are paying for the novelty of the item and the prestige or the status that comes with it. And especially when people who are status conscious, like I'm sure you guys know, or maybe even you yourself, like you want the newest phone, or you know someone who just wants to have the newest thing with the newest features just because. And they're very like status conscious, and they really want to be early on those trends. But that helps them earn back the production, research, and development costs because they're starting with the highest possible price. So like I said, phones are the best example of that one. Then there's price penetration, where businesses charge the lowest price possible for a product in order to achieve maximum market share. So the best example of this, and really good ones, are Audi. I like to talk about Audi with price penetration because in the early stage, they're not setting a really high price. They're selling a really low price. Still obviously covers the cost of production, but they can compete even more because the price is so much lower, and they've really penetrated with that smaller price in that initial starting phase, and that's attracting customers, and it actually discourages competitors from entering the market. And when you look at Audi, who compete, like obviously Woolworths and Coles compete with Audi, but everybody knows Audi's the cheapest because they have the lowest prices. So the disadvantage that comes with that is that Audi has, since they first opened, actually raised their prices a bit, and they're actually a little bit more expensive when they started. But it was very hard for them to do that because they started with this low initial, where the cheapest grocery store. So to kind of change that and now up their prices, because obviously they want profit maximization, back to roll, has obviously been a struggle. There's loss leaders. That's when a product is sold at or below the cost price. So businesses do this in the hopes that the consumer will enter the store, buy the discounted item, and then be incentivized to buy more full price goods. And then if they're successful, they actually earn back the money. And it's best used when the business is overstocked. So a really good example of this, again, I said I'm going to stop with makeup, but I won't. Mecca, but also Cotton On. You know when you go to Cotton On, and there's just all the extra little stuff there. Like there's hand sanitizers and there's water bottles, but Mecca too. Oh, Mecca, when I'm waiting in the Mecca line, if you know, you know. I will always pick up a mini thing that I don't need. I don't need, I did not ask to buy it, but it's there. Even when you're just at Woolworths and you know you're waiting for the self-serve, and you know there's gum there, or there's a water, or there's like a bottle, for me chocolate milk, it's gonna do it every time, or there's a little chocolate, like you're coming home with me. You're coming home with me and I didn't even ask. But all of that are those loss leaders, and they're just those products that are there, and you're incentivized to buy more full price goods because it's there. So for example, a supermarket sells everyday staple products like milk and eggs as loss leaders to entice customers. While browsing, they're likely to purchase additional, more profitable products which put the supermarket ahead. So bread and milk now, and eggs are loss leaders because they're sold really cheap. I'm like, oh, I need to go to the grocery store. Oh, I need to go to Woolies. I need bread. When will you ever leave with just bread? Something else is coming as well. All the extra stuff you buy, and I'm sure you guys would have would have heard your parents say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go just quickly to the grocery store. They come back with bags and you're unpacking the groceries and you're like, oh, I thought this was gonna be a quick run, and then you spend the next 10 minutes unpacking the groceries. But that's just an example of loss leaders where they have these really cheap items, you know, really quick and easy to buy, but then instead you end up buying all this extra stuff because there's all these other products that are being marketed. Then there's price points, which is where a business sells products only at a certain predetermined price. It actually makes it easier for customers to find the product they're looking for. So for example, if you go to the jeweler and you say you're in the market for a $400 watch, then the employer can actually convince you to upgrade to the $500 watch because there's better features. Another example of this is where someone's like, oh yeah, like this is everything under $49.99 rather than everything under 50, because 49, when I see $49.99, I see 40 in my head. That's just how I am. I don't know if any of you guys are like that too. But price points is only selling it at the predetermined price. And I used to work in retail, and in the store that I worked in a women's clothing store. We'd have in our sale periods like under $49.99 rack, under $39.99 rack. And that's an example of price points where depending on where you go, there's different sections. If you guys have ever been to Smiggle, I bought something for one of my little cousins from Smiggle, and they've got the same. It's like under $20, under $10, and depending on your price point, you can go to different things. Price and quality interaction is very important. So the kind of perception is that if something has a low price, it's got a low quality. It's like that's kind of goes hand in hand, while something high price has high quality. If I go and buy a Louis Vuitton bag, I'm going to hope that it's better quality than a low price Kmart bag, for example, because of the interaction between price and quality, because that determines the image for the good or the service that they're buying. But prestige pricing is based on tendency for consumers to assure expensive products equal superiority, which is, like I said, I keep bringing up designer bags and designer brands, but it's just an example of how premium pricing can be used to give the aura of quality and status. Because they're so expensive, they actually seem more prestigious than they are. If Louis Vuitton and Gucci and Dior and Bottega, all these brands were selling prices at the same, selling bags at the same prices as Colette and, you know, Glassons accessories and Universal, etc., there wouldn't be the competition. They wouldn't have the status that they do. It's the price that really helps create that. So, for example, a 2019 C43 Mercedes-Benz is $124,900. You're paying for the quality of the product, but also the prestige of the product. So obviously Mercedes are very good cars, but on top of that, they're very prestigious. They've really got that image and that status. On top of that is the markup is coming from that prestige. Now, promotion is the methods used by a business to inform, persuade, and remind a target market about its products, and they're going to use different mixes. So that comes in advertising, personal selling, and relationship marketing, sales promotion, and publicity and public relations. Now, personal selling and relationship marketing are both pretty hand in hand, but a lot of people get confused. Personal selling is the activities of a sales representative directed to a customer in an attempt to make a sale. So that's when you go to the shops, and one of the workers there is like, hi, how are you? Were you looking for anything today? Now, the person, like, oh, let me help you grab that. Even when they're like, oh, I'll pop this in the change room for you. And like, oh, how's your day been? All of that is personal selling because they're creating that personal bond with you. And what that means is that the message can be modified for each individual. So, for example, if I'm going to David Jones and I'm like, oh, I'm looking for a dress for my formal, that's different for someone that's buying like an everyday top or, you know, something to work out in. So the message then can be modified, and the worker can modify their marketing strategies to help create like individualized assistance for me and for different customers. But on top of that, when you get individualized assistance, and like I said before, I want you guys to think about a time you've been shopping and you had a really good shopping experience, or the worker was really good, really nice. I've had experiences that are so good that I'm like, this girl deserves a promotion. This guy was so good, that I've left or I've emailed customer service and been like, this person is so good, because they're just so sweet. And I hope you guys have had those experiences too. And if not, I hope you have them one day, because it's so nice to be treated like with so much support. And you know when it's genuine, you know, I'm sure you guys, it's a bit of a tangent, but like I know you guys, you know when you can just tell it's fake, but like, hi, how are you? But like when you meet someone real and you just feel it. But that actually creates a long-term relationship. And I've gone to stores where I've gotten such good service, I'm like, I'm coming back here just because the service was that good and that worker was that good. So that's personal selling. Think like personal, like it's me and you together. People get that confused with relationship marketing, but I spoke about this before. Relationship marketing is the development of long-term, cost-effective, and strong relationships, which they do through customer loyalty programs and rewards-based, like I said, flybys, Beauty Loop, etc., which incentivizes repeat purchases. And if you have any of those, loyalty cards, where if you return or you go back to this place, I don't know, eyebrow places do everywhere does it now. Then you're more likely to buy from them again. They're getting repeat profit, but it also is developing this long-term relationship. Like I said, I make a Beauty Loop. Your girl wants to move up. Your girl wants to move up and get the better boxes. So I'm going to keep going back to Mecca. I'm going to keep going back to Mecca, and that keeps me loyal there, and keeps me returning and making more sales. Sales promotion is the use of activities or materials as direct inducements to customers. What it does is entices new customers and encourages trial purchase of new products, but it also increases sales to existing customers and make repeat. So for example, Qantas, when the demand is dropping, they have sales promotions. So for example, when they first launched Jetstar to really promote it, they were like, we've got 100,049 tickets, like come buy one. And sales promotions are also like buy two, get one free, and all those like little messages which directly like induce those customers and entice them to buy it, like buy this and get a free gift. And those like little promotion slangs, that's what sales promotion is. And then you've got the communication process, which is a channel for any method to carry through the message. So whether that's like a print or it's electronic or it's on social media. There's opinion leaders, which is a person who influences others. And the best now, you guys are like you can use TikTok now and talk about TikTok influencers and unboxing videos and how they're opinion leaders, and the more followers you have, etc. And there's word of mouth as well, which receivers place trust in someone they know that's opposed to a business advertising, and people influencing each other through conversations. So like I said, I had my friend who was like, oh, like I wanted this toner, like I'm gonna go buy here. But even if you have someone like, oh, I've heard people like, oh, this restaurant's so good, like I love the service. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go check it out. Like, oh, they were really good. Oh, they were super quick. Oh, this food is so good. You're gonna go check it out because of that word of mouth, and that's a form of promotion as well. So one of the learn twos is to assess why a mix of promotional strategies is important, and that's where you can talk about it's. This is why it's important that they have good employees that can have that personal selling bond and really individualize their assistance. But it's also important that they have relationship marketing, and maybe they have a loyalty card, and you can bring it up in a business report, like maybe a loyalty card can help them get more profit because they're getting repeat customers. And then you can talk about sales promotion. Maybe they can offer like a free trial, or buy two get one free, and that can entice customers to buy the product and try it out. So in this learn to, what they want you to be able to do, and what the curriculum, when they wrote this syllabus, what Nessa was hoping for you guys was to be able to assess, which is a higher form of a business verb, but be able to make that judgment on, is it important? First of all, the answer is it important, and why is it important to have not just one, to not be like, okay, loyalty cards, that's it, we're not doing anything else. Why is it important to have loyalty cards, but also to have really skilled workers who can really have that bond, but also to have different trials and different different promos going on. So to also have opinion leaders, and to have influencers and celebrities, like all these different things, it's important that you can kind of justify that. But I know you guys know it. I know you guys are going to kill marketing. I hope like you leave this and realize like there's obviously some parts of marketing that are super dry. If you think I want to teach consumer law or the economics part, no thanks. But when I get to this part, I love marketing strategies. I hope you guys too do too, because it's just so easy to waffle. I just feel like if you know the definition, I could talk about this forever. You can talk about this forever if you know the definition, especially if you can link it to your own examples. I keep saying it, I'm so sorry, but it will just make such a big difference in business. Guys, we've made it to the end. I'm going to quickly wrap up with some of my final tips, and then we will say goodbye. But like I said, I'm on the TikTok if you're going to miss me. I'm going to stop. So the syllabus is so important. Please memorize it. I beg you. I kind of tried to touch on it here and there. But the more you've memorized your syllabus, it's just so much easier. It helps your answering as well, because you're going to use like naturally the terminology and the wording that you've learned from the syllabus. Again, you don't want to be the 99th person for the divorce marker. I'm going to keep bringing it up. But if you're using terminology from the syllabus, and they can see, wow, this person really knows their syllabus, they really know their content, it's going to help you across every section of the exam. Trust me. I beg you, please save or like screenshot or go onto the TikTok and save those fill in the blanks and have a go just trying them. You can even, I had the fill in the blanks, and when I first started doing them, I had my actual syllabus next to me, and I was like, I looked when I needed to until I didn't need it anymore, and then I tried it again without it, and then I tried it without no fill in the blank, and I just tried it like with blank dot points and trying to fill it in. And then sometimes I need the fill in the blank, or sometimes I need my syllabus, but if you can start this as early as possible, it will make such a difference. Please, I beg, if you take one thing, just learn the syllabus, please. My business teacher used to say, if you know the syllabus, you will pass business studies. If you've memorized it, you will pass. That's how important it is. Obviously, guys, I want 99s for all of you. I want 99s for all of you. So, we're obviously going to go beyond just passing, and that's the goal. But memorizing will make such a difference. Now, like I said before too, after you finish your notes, make a summarized, like, shortened version. Make your notes as simplistic as possible. It's great to have long notes, but I don't want you guys going into the exam with 40 pages for each topic, because I promise you, before your trials, you're not flipping through that. That'll actually just stress you out more. So it's completely fine. And I recommend have your long notes now, have them detailed. But as you get towards the end of the topic, or even if you want to do summarized ones as you go, like maybe you finish all of roll and you're like, okay, I'm going to try and fit this into 1 or 2 pages. It'll make such a difference, and it just makes your study so much easier. What you do now is so important. I actually posted a video, and I'm going to film one and summarize it. So when this goes up, you guys will probably see it soon. But I posted a video end of last year asking last year's class, what's some advice that we can give to the new year 12s? And one of the top comments was, do your notes early. I know it's so annoying to sit there and write notes, and it's so easy to fall behind. I fell behind on my modern history ones, and it was too late. But you get to the point where if you don't have your notes done for trials and HSC, you just add so much stress to yourself. I really, really, really memorize the syllabus and try and keep on top of your notes as much as possible. Even if it means taking from other people's notes, just try to have your notes done, because it just means that there's less to do when it comes time for your exams, because your notes are already done. You've just got to do practice questions and maybe practice essays and read over them, make some flashcards. But imagine all of that plus writing the notes plus learning the content. Get it done now. Try to get it out of the way as much as you can. Flashcards for terminology, ratios, and case studies. I'm a flashcards girly. Till I die, till my last breath. I love flashcards. I made them look pretty. They just worked for me, and it really helped with memorizing, because like I said, I tried to make it clear which points are more important than the others, and kind of like the main ideas that I want you guys to kind of wrap your head around. Flashcards really help you get those main ideas. You do not need every single dot point on this slide. You do not need to know every single dot point, but you do need those main points, and what's going to help you memorize those is flashcards, notes, past papers, and practice questions. Effective study. Have your notes, do some past papers, done. Band 6, I promise you, every single time. And I really do recommend reading sample answers, which you can see in, if you go to like the last year's HSC or the past HSC exams, you can go to the marking guidelines, and there's actually a sample answer with the potential things that you could have written for each of the questions. So if you want to read sample answers, but on top of that, online, there's a lot of exemplar business reports and case essays. So if you don't really feel good with business report writing and case essays, you can go and read 20 out of 20 versions. And I recommend I really like printing stuff. I don't mind having it on my computer, but I like printing stuff, like typing it first and then printing it, or printing someone else's stuff and highlighting, because I just, in my head, because I'm holding it, I'm like, wow, I'm doing more. But I would go through and I would read people's like 20 out of 20 business reports and be like, okay, what are they doing that I'm not? What do I like? What do I not like? And I would read different people's and get like different styles. And then that helped me make my own unique style, and got me to the point where every single business report I was writing, I was getting 20 out of 20. I don't want to like, yeah, every business report I don't like, not in that way. But because I had read so much and taken so many different things, I was finding all these brownie points to the point where like, ultimate suck up in the business report area. But I started off with 15s and 16s, and that was something that really made the difference, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like, I feel like I'm, I'm like answering the question, I'm using pretty good wording. And only when I saw what others were doing and saw the potential to get better and saw that high level could I improve. So I really, really recommend that, and it really made a big difference in my marks. Look for correlation between the information provided and the question asked, and scribble down syllabus dot points when it comes to these business report questions, I beg you, because the syllabus is in each of these questions. So here we've got describe the consumer laws. And if you knew your syllabus and what we just learnt before, you could talk about deceptive and misleading advertising, for example. Or you could talk about warranties, because we're looking at that too. Implied condition. Like, you can, if you knew the syllabus, you'd be able to answer this rather than just waffling what you think consumer laws are. So it's really important that you know that. So here, when we say consumer laws, that's 2 words. If somebody didn't know the syllabus, they could write about anything now. They could just write about laws in general. But because you know the syllabus, and because you're gonna memorize the syllabus in a non-threatening way, I swear, you would know to talk about these, and that these are the different topics you could talk about. Same with HR strategies. If you didn't memorize the syllabus, you wouldn't know which ones you could talk about. But if you memorize the syllabus, you'd know you can pick from any of these. And you can actually talk about a couple, and that shows your market that you know even more. That is the end, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know I definitely went on different tangents, and I really tried to mix the content with the advice. So I really hope that you found this helpful. Like I said, you can download the slides. So if you didn't take notes while watching this, I used to actually watch these lectures while I was in year 12, and I just have them on in the background. And I would download the slides, and then as I was writing my notes throughout the year, I would come back to these slides and I'd use stuff from these slides. So seriously, no shame if you didn't take any notes. You didn't need to, but really good job if you did. Either way, it's completely fine. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I am on the TikTok. I don't want to like push it too much, but if you liked this kind of style and this kind of mix of content and advice, and you're looking for more study advice, even with other subjects, I cover English modern, and we're going to be covering even more subjects on there. So if you are keen, you can access that on @notes_Oz on TikTok. But otherwise, I wish you guys all the best. Hopefully we'll see you in future lectures, because we will have them throughout the year. But wishing you all the best with business. I know you guys are going to absolutely smash it, and I'm manifesting band 6s for all of you. Have a good one. Thanks, guys.